Serious, NSFW. People who were friends with celebrities, of any kind, including adult films. How did they act once they started becoming famous? I went to high school with Anna Kendrick. By the time I met her she had already been on Broadway. But she wasn't nearly as recognizable as she is now. She was getting major parts in both high school plays and movies like Camp while we were friends. But unless you specifically asked her about it, she never talked about it. I'm so happy that Anna has become beloved for her odd, funny, sweet, innocent and yet sarcastic and sharp personality. Because it's exactly how she was in her day-to-day life when I knew her. Grew up with Andy Samberg. He was always pretty funny in the exact same style as he is now. He's pretty down to earth and treats people well, even when they're awkward around him. My parents went to his wedding and apparently that was crazy, big, lavish. What you'd expect from a celeb wedding. Also I owe him a Batman toy. I'm good friends with Lord Ella, and she hasn't changed at all. She still wants to be treated like a normal kid. I saw her at my friend's house party and she was treated as was one of the kids on the block. Went to middle school with Selena Gomez. She was actually a real good friend of mine. She was very sweet and was just doing small gigs back then like a Joe's Crab Shack commercial. I tried once to write her to congratulate her on Get Success back when she was on the Disney Channel. No response. Was a great friend and awesome lunch buddy. To be fair, she probably never saw the letter. I grew up with Maddie Bowman, halfpipe skiing Olympic gold medalist. She is considered the best female halfpipe skier in the world. Fame has not changed her at all. She is still the quiet, nice, down-to-earth girl she's always been. I still ride with her when she comes home. Edit. Wow. Stoked about all this karma and even more stoked about the amount of Redditors that knew her too. SLT pride. Tim Duncan. Literally. The exact same guy at 19 years old as he is this very moment. Minor exception being that he is slightly more guarded in areas involving his relationship's personal life because of messy situation with marriage. I love hearing this. Huge Tim Duncan fan. Glad he is not an asshole. I know one of the stars from Silicon Valley. He is still the same old hilarious dude he always was. Nice to see him having success. I'm gonna say Thomas Middleditch because the rest of the cast was already pretty famous from other projects. Good guess. My old co-worker is now a TV director. Now all I hear from him is when he sends out mass texts asking for money for his next project. He still owes me $20 from when he was a nobody and I bought him dinner. Did you buy him dinner out of pity or something? He didn't have any cash and needed dinner. It wasn't a big deal. Molly Holly, the WWE wrestler, used to babysit me. Well, she used to be a wrestler for WWE. I don't know how well known she is because I don't watch wrestling at all. I don't know he super well, because I was really little when she babysat me. But when I got older I would run into her occasionally when she was home. Her mom was also my lunch lady at school. Bonnie Greenwald. Such a nice lady. Nora Greenwald is Molly Holly's real name. And she is super nice and down to earth. Every time I ran into her when I got older, she would tell me this story about when she babysat me. We were playing on the trampoline and I was pretending to be a tiger. And I guess I bit her finger super hard and made her bleed. I don't remember this at all. But she always brings it up. So basically, 3-year-old me took down a WWE wrestler. Does Lindsay Stirling count? She isn't really super famous, but well known. It didn't change her too much. She counts. She seems like a musician who follows her older morals and ideals still while being fairly famous. Just saw her at Electric Forest. Played a kick-ass show. Had tons of energy and was extremely humble, passionate, genuine on stage. They put her on way too small of a stage though. I don't think they were expecting the crowd that turned out to see her. I went to middle school with Chance the Rapper and he's exactly what his persona gives off. A really down-to-earth guy who really just cares about making everyone around him happy and smile. This makes me happy as a big Chance fan. He also strikes me as a little bit of an awkward speaker in interviews, which is a shame because if he publicized his stuff more, he could be a bigger star. He has that much talent. Played baseball with 2 guys growing up that ended up in the majors. I haven't heard from or seen the one since he got signed, but the other one actually comes in all the time. He's a relief pitcher for the Nationals now. He has been with about 6 teams now. He's not a big name guy but makes money doing what a lot of people dream of. He doesn't have a 7-figure deal but makes around $500,000 a year and hasn't changed a bit. He just recently bought a house because he got married and is expecting a kid. Last time I saw him was at a local bar and he was still living out of his parents' house when he was in town and paid everyone's bar tab off before leaving. He was always, and as far as I know is still, a real stand-up dude. I played high school football with Aaron Hernandez. He completely changed when he got famous. Never held anyone when we were young. I worked with Emma Stone for a few years. Granted, it was after she'd come into some fame. But still. She is exactly how you see her on interviews. She's humble, hilarious, and down to earth. She treats everyone as if they're her equal and she's never met a stranger. I went to high school with Kanai. It was a quasi-gifted school in a middle-class suburb. He was just a normal kid like the rest of us. Part of the admissions process for this school was demonstrating a skill in one of the humanities. Both mine and Kanai's were art. But that and gym were the only classes we shared. He was talented and creative in a lot of things in that class, as was I actually. But he was kind of a schlep in gym class. Though it's not super fair of me to say that since I was among the few who played sports for my home school, where after I graduated Dwayne Wade went actually. Contrary to his image. I've heard he treats fans very well. His dislike is basically confined to the media. There was a video I saw where he saw some kid at the airport who was obviously a sneakerhead like him and gave him a pair of Yeezys before they came out. My uncle has become a solid C+. Maybe even a B in Hollywood. He still gets his kicks rummaging through and finding clothes in vintage shops. But he has all this money now. So instead of bumming around town, he bought a mansion in another country and spends his time jet setting around the world. Also, his dog travels first class with him. And he got the dog from the pound in another country. What the hell? Every other person answering the question just up and names their relative on Reddit. Am I too paranoid or something? A friend of mine interned on The Price is Right a little over a decade ago. He called me when he went to the restroom after Bob Barker because Bob didn't flush his sheet. Just left it floating. Man. I wish picture messaging was a thing back then. I'd have a picture of Bob Barker's turd. Instead I just have a hazy memory of my buddy describing it and the two of us having a good 10-minute conversation of what his daily fiber intake must be. That's about as close as I ever got to having a famous friend. I'm not sure if she's necessarily famous. But she's definitely well known, at least on Instagram. I went to high school with Nikki Heaton. Man, she was a year younger than me. She was kind of full of herself before she became famous. But now she's even more so. I'm not sure when she felt like she was an ugly duckling because she always used to post Instagram selfies with about 50 hashtags like pretty hot, pretty gel, swag, etc. She also used to annoyingly self-promote her YouTube account with her boyfriend at the time. Ask anyone in my graduating class, her graduating class, and maybe a couple years around us, and they most likely say that she's incredibly annoying and or that we're 100% over everyone being obsessed with her as. I went to high school with Larry Nance Jr. Now he got drafted to the Lakers. Pretty much the same guy. Can be okay. Can be a douche up. I just remember his mom yelling at him in elementary school for not helping clean up after class party. Same guy as always. Just very wary. His walls are higher because everyone asks him for sheet. So, when he's not working he rarely goes out to his regular favorites anymore. But he's still the same guy who watches out for his mom and family. Good level head. Went to high school with someone who became a WWE wrestler in the last 8 years. You can come up with any cliche-tired line about how nice, funny, and great he was and it would actually all apply to him. The dude was ducking awesome, hilarious, and genuinely great to be around. Even damn near every teacher loved him. Cheat. I can't actually remember anyone who didn't like him. Went to high school with, and was bullied by, a girl who went on to be a model on Project Runway. She was an entitled bitch in high school. Continued to be an entitled bitch, while hiding behind a public persona, once she was on the show. And as far as I know, might still be an entitled bitch. Last I heard, she was some millionaire's trophy wife. But hey, she put me within 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So I can be grateful for that. Taylor Lautner was my friend through middle school and into high school. He was already in movies and such when he came to our school, but he was always super nice. He added me on Facebook after I moved away, but when I went to show someone after Twilight had come out, he had deleted his Facebook. At that age I felt slighted, but now I realize he likely had to keep his personal info a little safer. Ashley Teasdale graduated from my high school as well, but she was a few years ahead of our grade. There's probably a few more people I'm missing, but those two are pretty notable. Edit, the younger son from the George Lopez show, went to high school with me as well. Used to skate with him a bunch. Down to earth guy. I went to high school with Michael Phelps. I can't claim we were friends, but he did sit next to me for a year in US government class. He was always nice to me and would make polite conversation before class. We were 100% in different social circles. I was shy, nerdy, and as you can guess, he was popular and well liked. This was around the time of his first run at the Olympics. I remember our school made a huge deal about it and declared Michael Phelps Day. He seemed a bit embarrassed by it all. He was a nice kid. A bit fidgety and bored in class though, but who wouldn't be? Justin Bieber. My younger brother went to high school with him and he came over to our house once. Flashback to grade 9. Justin and my brother decided it would be a good idea to play in a puddle that was right beside a house that was being built. My brother told me that he stripped down into his boxers and jumped in this puddle and stepped on a nail. He went home and my mom got a nasty phone call from his mother saying that he wouldn't be coming over again. He was a bad kid before he got famous. Was very cocky and bragged about a lot of things. A lot of people in our town didn't like him and created a bad reputation for himself. I remember he was on the city bus with me and the kid beside him said, "This guy is going to be famous one day. Good for him for doing what he does. He is obviously very successful. But to me, he will always be the same person he was back in the day." My oldest friend's little brother is the star of a pretty popular TV show on True TV. Not hugely famous, but he's on his way. Still the same cool, wacky, funny guy that I've known forever. It was kind of strange seeing his face on a billboard in Times Square knowing I beat him up in like 1984 or something. Grew up family friends with Win and Will Butler of the Arcade Fire. They are great guys. We used to sneak the boozy eggnog at our parents' holiday parties when we were kids. They still send invites to shows. Just don't see them much anymore. Not a real celebrity, but my girlfriend was good friends with Todd Herzog, the winner of Survivor China. Apparently, after he won, he became a huge star and alienated every friend he had before going on the show. I knew this guy. We went to high school together. He is famous now. He is still cool. This is getting annoying. Just tell us who they are. I went to high school with that guy who got high on bath salts and ate a homeless man's face a few years back. I was friends with the kid who played Rico in Hannah Montana, Moises Arias, in elementary school. He was one of the chillest kids in school back then. But now he's a complete douche-up. I knew Macklemore as a teenager. We had lots of mutual friends and hung out quite a few times, but were never particularly close. I spent enough time with him to have a few embarrassing stories to share. I didn't pay him much attention because he bullied my brother at school. He was a run-of-the-mill. Not super popular but not unpopular. Average semi-douchy. Cocky teenager. Didn't stand out much. It seems like he did the normal thing douchy teens do and grew out of it into a decent guy. Anyway, I'm glad he's become so successful. My grandfather was in the same army unit as Elvis Presley. Since Elvis was the jeep driver for the company commander and my grandfather was a senior NCO, they would see each other very often. My grandfather speaks highly of Elvis. He did what he was called up to do with little fanfare and was a hard worker who did right by his fellow soldiers. Close friend of mine was the lead singer of a very popular alternative rock band. Replaced the original deceased lead singer. Starred in music videos and toured. He answered the phone whenever I called. And when he was in town, we would hang out. As his popularity grew, he got tunnel vision and we would hang out less. Eventually, he stopped answering the phone altogether. The last I talked to him, he stated that everyone needed something from him. Be it money, a picture, an interview, an autograph, etc. No one would ever ask him, "How are you?" It was always about the other person. So he just cut everyone out of his life. Edit, out of respect for my friend and how he used to confide in me. I don't want to identify him. However, I will say that a couple of you did identify him correctly. This is a pretty weak one maybe. But I remember sending Ludacris an email. He had his email address on his website. Shortly after hearing What's Your Fantasy on a local NC hip hop radio station for the first time. Telling him how much I loved the track and how I couldn't wait for a whole album. He responded with a very grateful email talking about how much the praise meant. And how cool it was that the single was starting to get some traction. This was in the summer of 1999. I'm pretty sure. My family is good friends with Carol Spinney, the original actor who played Big Bird. And Oscar. He has always been super nice to everyone I've seen him talk to, including me. He is an older gentleman who enjoys traveling outdoors and collecting items from around the world. I used to do landscaping jobs on his property for him when I was younger. He has a nice chunk of property with 8 ponds, items from across the world, and even a recreation of Stonehenge on it. He is retired now, but still throws friend and family parties every year. During the parties, kids will beg to hear his Big Bird voice. And he gives every kid a free toy in his toy shop, a collection of toys from around the world. He also always throws a puppet show which includes Oscar, if he can borrow it from the studio, and a few other puppets he owns. When Oscar is brought into the puppet show, he says hi to all of the little kids at the party. Oscar still says my name every year even though I am 21 now. I went to high school with a certain rap pop star. I was a freshman and he was a junior. I can say this. His original look and demeanor was much more street than what it is now. When he was coming up, he had gold teeth, wore a lot of baggy stuff, fat farm, dikeys, had his hair long braided in cornrows. As he started to make it, like, after his first album dropped, I was out at a local strip club and he had his new entourage with him. And his new group of friends were basically controlling his moves. But hey, now he's at what he's at. I'm currently friends with Dave Matthews. I met him about 10 years ago and we totally clicked. I can't stand his music, but he's a super rad dude. Totally down to earth. Not arrogant. Runs his own errands and raises his own kids. If a fan ever approaches him, he stops what he's doing and always takes the time to talk, which I really love. He also smokes hella weed up. For me, the change is what made her famous. I went to high school with Lauren Rain. For those who don't know, Lauren was a member of the Westboro Baptist Church and became famous when she broke off and wrote a book called Banished. All of the Phelps children, the Westboro Baptist Church's pastor's grandchildren, went to my high school in Topeka, Kansas. Interestingly enough, all of the children were incredibly nice. I was heavily involved in debate and forensics, They were not, and had gotten a very early impression that their beliefs were infused via a form of brainwashing when they would post anti-homosexual sentiments in the school newspaper. Lauren was very quiet. I attempted to talk to her a few times but nothing beyond hellos. She didn't wear makeup and wore clothes that were either hand-me-downs or homemade, none of which I cared one way or another about. But after writing Banished, she very clearly changed. In fact, she's huge into working out and is incredibly attractive. I sent her a message congratulating her on breaking free and also on the success of her book. She wrote back, which was cool. But she's definitely changed from the meek, quiet girl who didn't say anything in high school. She does modeling and such. Ultimately, no matter what, I'm very glad she was able to break free of WBC in such a negative mentality. A lot of the other children who were going there have as well. Played with a now famous Dutch YouTuber. He always was making funny videos and decided to put them on YouTube. He did change at all. Now has a YouTube gaming channel. It's funny. All his fans are like 11-year-old and run over to him asking for a picture and fangirling. I used to work out with JJ Watt, Texans defensive end. Super hard-working dude. Super positive. Although I don't really know how he is now. My last conversation with him was help on some economics homework in college. A buddy of mine moved to LA years ago to become a famous actor. It worked. He started doing commercials. Then got cast on an HBO show. Now he's doing bit parts in movies. And showing up all over the place. Same guy as always. Well, I guess. When I first met him, he would just tell big dick jokes over Boxliv. Now he does it on HBO and gets paid for it.